everyone, and welcome back to another thrilling episode of The Lion's Den. I'm your host, Venezia Leone, and today I sat down with Michael McHale, a mechanical engineer turned entrepreneur who acquired and scaled an automation and robotics company from just a few employees to nearly 100. In this episode, we talk about what it actually takes to grow a business in a capital-intensive, people-driven industry, where execution matters just as much as strategy. We get into the realities of scaling, from hiring and cash flow challenges to the mistakes that inevitably come with growth, and how Michael has navigated that over time. We also explore how AI is beginning to impact even the most hands-on industries, and what it looks like to integrate new technology into a business that's fundamentally built on people. This episode has awesome insights, and I really hope you enjoy. Hey, Michael, it's so nice to have you on the Lion's Den.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate the invitation.
Of course, excited to talk today. So I want to learn a little bit about you and your industry, which is automation and machining. It's not a typical place that someone might find themselves as an entrepreneur. How did you first get pulled into this world?
I'm a mechanical engineer by trade. So my first profession was mostly construction, large scale developments. So there's a bit of engineering there. But then I went to work for a clean tech private equity firm that put me back in the world of process engineering and process development. That sort of led me to, hey, what's the next opportunity and what's the next mover and shaker in industry going to be? And it was robotics. So in 2014, I started looking for a robot or an automation company that was for sale, and I found PSA Systems in May of 2016. So we're actually coming up on 10 years, May 6th. And at that point, we had 4 employees. So today we're pushing 100. So we've had pretty good growth.
For sure. In less than 2 decades, a year and a half. That's awesome. What, for someone maybe who would be interested in following in your footsteps, what were sort of your decision points between buying an already existing company, finding a company, start working your way up in a company? What was sort of going through your mind on how you got started in that approach?
I think it was pretty easy for me. I had no background in automation and robotics. So starting a company was probably not much of an option. I was really a construction development guy.
Okay.
So I didn't really have much of a choice to find a company to start with. And I think it was important to find that base, because I didn't, if you don't have that base, it's a lot easier to scale off of the base.
Okay. And what did scaling look like? Or I guess maybe even pre-scale, what did those early days look like for you as you had not that much experience, but sort of technical knowledge to support it, and you were coming in as the leader of this already existing company?
Drinking through a fire hose. I know you probably hear that a lot from entrepreneurs, but it was really learning and sales activity and just getting out and learning the overall business. And it was rough, right? It took a lot of time. It took a lot of time to get the background, well over a year. And then we started to grow right from that point. We had a really solid base of staff at the company, and that helped jettison the growth. I thought, the industry was kind of looking for the opportunity. The industry was growing 10 years ago. It's definitely larger now than it was then. If you statistically look at automation robotics companies, there's just over 1,000 or so automation companies in the market. And that's split from very large integrators that own 50% of the market, and then the rest that share the rest of the 50. So there's a handful of really big players at the top, 30, 40, 50, and then everybody else plays in the middle. So the opportunity to grow was kind of in front of us, and it just took the action to go do it. We're engineers, so typically by trade we're very conservative and slow moving. I'm a little not that, so that's kind of what it takes. Takes a lot of risk. Some calculate it, some not calculate it, and some calculations that were figured out well after the calculations were done, unfortunately.
But that's science, you got to keep making hypotheses and seeing if they work out.
Yeah, it was a learning experience.
So was there I guess before I get to that, I'm interested in when you were choosing a company, was people a big factor that you were sort of capitalizing on? Was it like what were your evaluation criteria that made you end up saying, okay, PSA Systems is the one I think can break through the market?
I wish I had something very intricate for you here, but in reality, it's a very tiny market, and there happened to be an automation company located in Philadelphia.
Cool.
And it was for sale at the time. I had looked at other businesses around the country, but being in the Philadelphia, growing up in Pennsylvania and living in and around the Philadelphia area made a lot of sense. So really, it was geographic, and it was right place, right time, more than a strategic buy. Today, when we look at companies to acquire or industries to grow into, we have a much more nuanced look at those opportunities. 10 years ago, there wasn't a lot of nuance to it. It was more of, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I'm going to hopefully be successful. Let's just go.
I like your tenacity.
Yeah.
But no, I really think that is a valid like learning as well, is to be able to say sometimes the opportunities are available and it's up to you to take advantage of them. And that's sort of the learning from it, not here are the 10 pieces of information that I capitalized on,
Yeah. I think, when you're analyzing a business, you can paralyze yourself with analyzing all the details. And a lot of times you're not going to know the details until later on in the process. So you're looking for a business that you can understand, or there's a core value that makes sense to you. Not necessarily, hey, this actually checks all 10 boxes of some preset due diligence phase that I have. We do a little bit of that now, but more, today it's more a feel. Hey, does this fit to our business? Can we expand our client touch through those businesses? And does the culture fit the way we're growing the culture at PSA? Because we are people driven, and we're trying to drive that culture into anything we do and any businesses that we're associated with.
Yeah, that definitely seems like a common thread is really focusing on people and culture and values, and that tends to lead to success.
And we have to be. We're not a SaaS model company where we grow on a program or on some sort of system we invented. We are people driven. We make parts, we program robots, we program PLCs, we design equipment. That's all done by a human. We are delving pretty deep into the world of AI and AI CNC programming, and we are rolling out a Watson X project management platform in the company. But that's really to help us streamline how we handle our customers, talk to our customers, and how our project managers run the project. That's not going to replace. We physically have to touch a piece of equipment to make it work.
Absolutely. I think that balance between people and the hands-on and the technology is a very unique problem, like space in industry.
Yeah, and I'll be honest. I didn't really come from a world that had a lot of culture. When you come from very large construction projects, that doesn't build a lot of culture because it's very cutthroat and it's very fast. And you go on to your next project, and you're typically with a whole new team. So we've been down a cultural journey at the company for the last 5 years, doing 7 Habits training and advancing that training through the company to every employee and keeping the learnings and trying to increase our communication. It's really proved very valuable for us. And with the addition of AI, not the replacement of AI into our business, I see extraordinary growth potential with helping employees work a little smoother inside of the problems that we have with customers.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed experiencing how AI has increased my productivity in
Yeah.
sort of anything
Even,
that I'm trying to execute on, you know?
yeah, personally, I'm now using it every day a lot. I use it for analyzing all types of different problems, business adventures, investments inside the business, even experimenting on how we want some of our Watson X rollout to look like. I kind of demo it so we can show it a little better inside of our own agent that I build. So I've found it incredibly useful just in the last 6, 7, 8 months. It's really gotten very handy.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to talk about the sort of your scaling. So we talked about how you bought it, it was 4 people, now it's 100 people. What are like when you start to scale, especially in an industry where like mistakes are expensive, if your robots aren't working the way they're supposed to work, and if people's tools aren't, you know, achieving the goal that they purchased it for, what have you experienced, and maybe even sort of in the different phases of the growth of the company, what are the biggest problems that you've had to solve as PSA Systems has scaled from 4 to 20 to 50 to 100 people?
You know, honestly, the problems are numerous. From hiring staff very fast to making the wrong hires, maybe growing too fast, to cash flow management, to not scoping projects correctly. You know, this could be an hour conversation about all the things that, you know, we've done wrong at the company. You know, but all those wrong things we've done, there was always a glimmer of this was the right thing. We just have to focus on the right thing and not dwell on the wrong thing. We still make mistakes. Our mistakes are smaller now and less costly than they were in the past. But we still make mistakes, and we're using our knowledge set and the skill sets in the company to limit the exposure of problems. And a lot of that comes with, you know, thousands of working years of experience across the company. When somebody sees something wrong, hey, say it's wrong, and then maybe we could do it better. Because that collective voice is way stronger than just a me or a single person in the company.
Yeah. And like you were saying, building the culture where people feel comfortable speaking up because they're heard, and you guys make decisions based off of how people are experiencing the previous decisions that you've made.
Yeah, listen, we're not perfect by any means. Are we working to be better? Yes, and that's what we try to do every day. We're not perfect, nor do I think any of us are going to be perfect. So there's always room for improvement, either on the customer handling side or an HR side, or just anything inside the business. You know, we do have to work as a team, and we do spend 8 to 10 hours a day together. We might as well make those 10 hours a day productive.
Yeah. One of the things that I wanted to hear if you had more thoughts of was when you were talking about how the difference between your business and the SaaS business is the people sort of are the product, in a lot of ways, and your whole business is oriented around people. Did you have any additional thoughts on the differences of your business versus other industries, and maybe like specific learnings that you feel like are sort of unique to, again, automation or machining, or sort of those kinds of industries? Maybe even just engineering industries, physical product industries, you know, versus software.
Yeah, I mean, I I really just think it comes down to the people, right? We cannot scale PSA without, you know, $1 of revenue is equal to some period of work. Where in a SaaS model, you can scale multiple times without adding additional people. And when we look at adding additional staff, it could be an engineer, it could be a programmer, it could be a fabricator, it could be a welder, it could be a CNC operator, it could be a painter, it could be a truck driver. You know, that scaling for a heavily capital intensive business is very complex. about what jobs you scale, where do you go, how do you use your assets to the best of your ability. When you're running a SaaS model, your biggest capital expense is a computer or server time. It's a little easier to make a mistake. You make a mistake, okay, I pull that software back, I throw out a new version, I fix my mistake. If we make a mistake, there's no just pull it back and send a new version. We have to refabricate, re-engineer, repaint, reassemble, reprogram, retest. That iteration takes a long time and is very cost effective. I think that it really comes down to people scaling is the biggest challenge with scaling. And if I look back on our past, cash flow demands inside the business as we grew really might have been driven by improper staffing as we grew. We had to add staff within the workflow, so we were overstaffed, and then we grew back into the staffing, and then COVID hit, and then you fought through COVID, right? And then you fought through election years, or we do a sizable amount of government projects. Well, when there's no budget, continuing resolutions, you're not getting paid on your government contracts. They can't release the contracts. There's a lot. It's a very dynamic situation, but it comes down to the staff and how well can we deploy and redeploy the staff inside of the company.
Yeah, the government contracts are interesting. Was that sort of a strategic, hey, we're going to expand, or was that something you guys felt like you needed to do based off of supply and demand? Or
it honestly, it just sort of happened. When I purchased Keystone Automation in 2018, they had a couple of very small contracts, and we've grown those over the years. So it's sort of morphed, and it's become just like a commercial client to us, where it's treated like a commercial client in the sense of it's just another vertical. I do like the vertical. I think if you have exposure to commercial and government, you can't go wrong. Too much exposure in government versus too much exposure in commercial, you could have problems there when there's funding issues or government slowdown issues. So we're pretty well balanced now. So we're in a very good spot when it comes to the difference between commercial and government.
I've always been told to diversify my assets, so that makes sense to me. That
it's just I like playing in the different avenues. I think it adds a lot of value to the company. Maybe not on the multiple standpoint. Prior to this big run up with government spending, most PE firms didn't really value government work very high and want you to exit. Now you're getting a premium for it. But I think it ebbs and flows. It's definitely going to ebb and flow. And we'll see what the future holds. I also think it depends on what sections of government work you're in. If you're in aero defense, you probably got a big run up for the next 10 years. If you're in underfunded NHS type things, you're probably going to have a problem. So you got to pick your poison.
Yeah, and maybe that perceived volatility actually ends up existing in the commercial, like private sectors too.
Yeah.
So.
I think you're chasing capital markets, right? We're in the capital equipment market. So you're going to chase those same up and downs. And the only thing you can hope is that you're not having a commercial down and a government down all at the same time. So you kind of bounce through the middle versus hitting the bottoms or the highs.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that you mentioned that you like to do, or that you think is important, is sort of learning and experimenting. How does that actually show up for you? And maybe sort of a two-part question. How does that show up for you as a leader? And how does that show up for you in PSA systems? Like sort of as a,
Yeah. I try to never say no to a meeting or a phone call or an opportunity to learn. And I find that, all right, a lot of owners don't want to waste time. And I understand that, hey, you could have time wasted by meeting somebody for a coffee or lunch or a call. But in the course of your year, if you're meeting a handful of new people a week, what can you possibly learn? What are the opportunities to advance your business or find a business opportunity or a new client? How do you ever pick a winner in trying to learn? And some of it's, I try to take calls with startup companies, to experienced companies, to solo entrepreneurs. There's always something to learn, whether it's I'm just missing something on a financial statement or there's a technology out there that can help us in the business. And I find that I'm always pushing forward and finding those new opportunities. And then if you find the opportunity, you can't be afraid to take a runner at it and say, okay, well, we're going to implement that, or we're going to take that opportunity. Some are going to fail, and you have to expect that. But some may be the turning point of your company. How do you know where that is? A business model is great, and you can follow that business model until, the old saying, everybody's a fighter until you get punched in the face. But when you get punched in the face, well, then you got to relocate and figure out, okay, maybe I don't put my head there. I need to move to something else, and I need to pivot the business into a different direction. And if you don't have your head on a swivel, you're not going to find those opportunities. And listen, is there some people that are probably in a good lucky space where they're hitting the market at the right time, they have the right product for the right time, place? Absolutely. But I'm going to say the majority of us have to find that right time and right place. And if you're not looking for the right time and right place, you may never find it. So opening your ears and opening your eyes to, not being the smartest guy in the room is, I think, very important.
Do you have like a way that you track any of that? Like who you're meeting or when you're meeting or if you're overextending your time or
No.
anything like that?
It goes on my schedule. If I have time in my schedule, I just fit it in. Right? Yeah. I try not to be that rigid. A lot of times I do these calls on the weekend when I know I'm not kind of interfering with normal business, but I very rarely try to turn down what I think is genuine networking or genuine learning opportunity.
Yeah. Do you feel like that is also in support of the companies that you have acquired or considered acquiring? Like, do you think that's a really helpful skill in that search for you, is discovering things that way?
Absolutely. We're in a tech business. So if I look at vision systems for robots, where we were 10 years ago versus 5 years ago, where we are today, even 5 years ago, I couldn't have. There's applications we do today that I'm like, oh my goodness, we wouldn't even have thought about looking at that 5 years ago. I could only imagine what the next 24, 36 months is going to be with AI, with AI-driven opportunities. So if you're not looking for the future, you're going to get passed by. With the speed at which business, I think, is going to change in the next 24 months, you better have that head on the swivel, or you're going to miss the opportunity, and somebody's going to be doing something innovative that may put your business at risk of losing a client.
Yeah. That's really interesting. I feel like I'm kind of taking that away in an abstract, like philosophical way of just like being more open to opportunities and to people, even someone who messages me on LinkedIn and wants to have a random conversation, being more open in the world and your energy.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. Sometimes I see something on LinkedIn and I'll reach out and say, hey, I want to talk, or somebody inboxes me and I happen to be in the right mood, or something kind of hits me the right way and I say, hey, let's talk. No different than you reaching out for a podcast or asking us to a podcast. You never know what that opportunity may or may not be. And I look at this is going to a convention or a mingle, but in a much more controlled environment where you're not wasting as much time. It's speed dating of a sort, with being able to open your eyes to the opportunities that may be in front of you. And we drive technology forward. We're using AI programming for CNC operation. Well, I saw a LinkedIn post about that, so we reached out, and the team went down a rabbit hole of AI programming. And 3 months after a post, we were running AI programming in the machine shop. I think those are important for business owners to stay out ahead of what's changing in the industry and not be afraid to make a mistake, because you're going to make mistakes.
Yeah. So how do you think about automating and creating processes and systems in your own company in terms of, like, do you have any examples or experiences where a system or a process for you guys like unlocked a lot of growth or unlocked a lot of opportunity? I know maybe we've been talking about AI, but yeah, experiences like that where you've said, oh, because we implemented this, we were able to advance ourselves more than we thought.
We're on a journey. We're on a journey right now with our project management, with our PSA project management philosophy, where in 3 months I'll be able to tell you that we are generating an AI agent to help us with project management, sort of how you're using AI today in your given day. I'm really thinking that it is going to be a revolutionary change for us in the way that we're able to track and run jobs more efficiently. And then as we go upstream into the sales process to help define projects and track to track data. And then as we go down into the business for scheduling and automation in our machine shop and on the plant, in our fabrication floor, to help us know what's going on at a much more granular level. When I analyze opportunities now, I load it into my agent and I track that opportunity. And then the ability to dive into questions as you think through it is really remarkable. So I don't think there's any process that anyone could have done in the last 20 years that will be as impactful as AI in the next couple of years in your business.
I have been.
Yes, sorry. I just don't see it. I don't see how any Excel spreadsheet or PowerPoint could ever replace the power that we're going to have at our fingertips pretty soon.
I have been so amazed by AI's ability to connect disparate data. Like, yeah, I think that is a huge, so when you're talking about, the project management, but then the up funnel and the down funnel of those, mm-hmm, and your machine shops being able to understand what the sales team is doing in like an aggregated, easily visualized, 100% real time structured way is, I totally agree with you. I think is I don't know, it's monumental, revolutionary, crazy, the way that we can connect these things and connect them with a sentence, a prompt.
Yeah. But we had a very deep dive with my machine shop leaders last week or the week before, where I'm seeing the next 5-year opportunity in the machine shop industry is just bonkers. There's a retirement cliff coming in that space. There could be a reduction in overall machine shops in the industry of 2/3 in 5 years.
Oh my God.
So to be able to do a live chat with data and show it to leaders and actually have an open discussion about, okay, this is what I'm thinking. And then when somebody asks a question, well, what about this? And you type it in, and 30 seconds later, you're having a discussion. The conversation and the growth that can be done in such a short period of time is things that Google could never have replaced. Being able to develop a PowerPoint about stats or data in the course of 3 or 4 hours while you're watching Big Bang Theory at night, and not even really working, but you're having fun asking questions and it's learning. It's mind-boggling. And if you're not using it, man, your business is going to suffer, I believe.
I even think as an individual contributor, like you've got to be using it, and you've got to start asking it how to do things that you don't even know if it's possible to do, and figure out how to do them with it. And then share it with your teammates and say, hey, I created this agent that does this thing that's going to make all of our lives easier. And that's the sort of value add that I think is really going to become how you differentiate yourself.
Yeah, and that's the value add, right? We're trying to value add to our employees to make their lives easier, to make our projects better, and then to push that back up to our clients. And to be able to have that agentic knowledge of a project, and then to be able to carry it to the next project and the next project and keep it learning. You know, we started the journey 6 or 7 months ago, not even knowing we were going to be using AI. We started the journey of mapping out what our project management roadmap looked like from the start of a PO to the completion of a project and delivery of final documents. And that took a team of 5 in the company 6 months and untold amounts of hours, like true commitment to do this. And then as I started to dive deeper into the AI, I actually took those documents and I developed my own project management tool in the course of a couple hours. That's what sort of got the brain power. Oh my God, like we can make this on an enterprise platform. And that's how we dove in with Watson, with IBM Watson, to become that enterprise overwatch of the company. I don't think you should be running your business on Claude or Grok because it's not enterprise and there's no guardrails. And it's always kind of spitting data out to you in different formats. So if you want things to look consistent, well, then you have to set up a protocol. And that's the journey we're on now. So we spent all this time developing the roadmap, not knowing that the roadmap was exactly what the agent needed to learn. And we had no idea. That was like a revelation when the automation consultant came in and they're like, well, show us the documentation we have. And we brought this up. Their jaws dropped. They had never walked into a company that actually had that written out, like at a small mid-sized company like ours. So I give a lot of, all the credit to our team for pulling that together and putting the hours in. And now we're thinking about what that process looks like from the introductory to a sale to a purchase order. Because now we're doing an agent for a purchase order to the end, and then all the agents that'll sit inside of it. So it's quite the journey, and we're pretty excited about. Hopefully, it makes our lives better, and it makes our product to our customers better, and then that becomes a sales tool. So now we differentiate from all the other competitors as well. So it's a good experiment. Do I know it's perfect? It's absolutely going to work? No, but I think it can add value, and we'll see how much value it can add over time.
I think if there's one thing that's true for every single company, increased organization and clearer communication is never a bad thing for a company.
And listen, we struggle. We have a lot of people doing a lot of different things at different times on different schedules, and it's very, very difficult. And if you look at any of our peers have the same problems, right? It's a universal problem. Working off Excel spreadsheets and Word documents and PowerPoints that doesn't make automation.
Yeah, it's interesting how we've kind of grown from, okay, let's have collaborative documents, and that unlocked this ability or this like level of productivity. And now we're sort of moving on from that, and we're saying, okay, now they shouldn't just be collaborative, but now they need to be alive. Like they need to respond and they need to stay up to date. And
I'm not even sure how much that collaborative documentation really helped us. In reality, that became more of a revision control problem. I think the Teams and Zoom and things like that helped quite a bit. But this is the next evolution. When you could take a conversation like this, record the notes, have that as a documentation inside of that project, and then develop meeting minutes and tracking from that to be able to search against it. It's so powerful. Hey, who remembers details or data from a meeting 6 months ago? How would you ever parse through that data or remember it? Or Hey, what did you say? What did I say? It's almost impossible. So this makes that impossible possible.
Yeah. Well, let's end on that very inspirational note. Michael, it was such a pleasure to have you on the Lion's Den. I know I learned a lot, and yeah, I wish you and PSA Systems the best.
I appreciate the time. Thank you very much.